Dave Zangaro joins us each and every Friday on our Comcast Business Hotline. I have a story in front of me where he goes, what Eagles offensive line, the bullies, love so much about Saquon Barkley. Mr. Dave Zangaro on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, Dave?
What's up, Ty? I thought you were calling me a bully there for a second.
No, man, listen, you know that back in the day, I've heard about you. Now, one of the things we've been talking about is we're talking about the identity of the team. What we're noticing, you can correct us if we're wrong, Dave, is even on both sides of the ball now, this team, and especially in the trenches, comes at you with this level of physicality, and it seems like it's difficult for teams to hold up for the whole game. Washington was running the ball pretty well early and stopping the run pretty well early, but by the end of the game, they weren't running it so well, and they weren't stopping the run so well because the trenches, the Eagles guys just keep coming at you. Is that a fair way to look at how the Eagles are playing nowadays?
Yeah, and, for early in the season, we're looking at, what is the identity of this football team? And I think that term probably gets thrown around a little too much as we try to figure out what that is, but this is a physical football team. This is a football team that right now I don't think you want to play because they're going to beat you up on both sides of the football. And it starts in the trenches, but it doesn't end there. I mean, you look at Reed Blankenship with some really big hits yesterday. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean as the linebackers. Even some of the blockers, you have a Grant Calcaterra throwing some good blocks. You have Dallas Goedert willing to block downfield. This is a physical football team, and that really showed up. And in a game where, they're coming off a short rest, but they had the benefit of resting in the fourth quarter against the Cowboys. Imagine being the Commanders. You have to fight tooth and nail to try to win a game that you lose against the Steelers, another physical football team, and then you have to turn around in a few days and play this Eagles team. That's a tough matchup, and the Eagles just bullied them. You're right.
I got to ask, just give us your thoughts on how good Quincy Mitchell is.
Plants yesterday. I was so excited to wake up this morning and watch some of the film of his performance because I'm watching it from the press box, and I'm keeping an eye on him because it's there. It's the one play that really stood out to me, and I clipped it. The first thing I did when I woke up this morning after 3 hours of sleep was to go and find the Brandon Graham sack because Jaden Daniels wanted so badly to throw that football to Terry McLaurin, and he just couldn't. Quincy Mitchell just stayed in his hip the entire way through a double move. He's unbelievable right now. He's putting these good receivers in torture chambers for entire football games. It's fun to watch. I thought he'd be good. We go back to the draft. I thought he was the best cornerback in this draft. He was a guy that I thought was going to be good in this league. I didn't think he'd be this good this early. I've been wowed by him. It's a shame that he doesn't have any interceptions because he should be in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's been that good. And it's funny, I was on a station in Washington this week, and I was trying to explain that, and I think a lot of the Commanders fans got annoyed and said, well, of course, if any player had the stats, they'd be viewed as a better player. But I think they saw it in that game because Terry McLaurin comes into that game third in the league in receiving yards, and he has one catch for 10 yards, and it didn't come against Quincy Mitchell.
Yeah, he's playing pretty special. Another guy, Dave, before we get to Saquon Barkley, is Jaylen Carter. When we were talking about yesterday, one of the things we were a little bit maybe worried about was, man, Carter's been playing a lot of snaps, and it's a short week. How much is he going to be able to play? He plays every single snap, and we're looking at it. Linebackers, D-backs, smaller players. This dude's a 300-pound guy and played every single snap, and a lot of his best moments happen later in the game. Just how special right now is Jaylen Carter?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch him play because early in the year he has that big game, and we all say, man, it would be great if he could do that every single week. And now he's starting to do that. He played all 66 defensive snaps. To put that in perspective, he's the only defensive tackle in the league this year to play every single snap for his team. Fletcher Cox played an incredible career here. He never did that in a game. He never played every single snap for the defense. Now, he wasn't asked to. He probably could have. But it's just telling you how much Vic Fangio trusts Jaylen Carter and how much they're getting out of him. I've been really impressed by his play recently. I thought he had a great game yesterday. Kind of a similar thing. It doesn't really show up in the stat sheet, He had 7 tackles, which is great. He had 1 tackle for loss, but that just doesn't do anywhere near the justice that he deserves for that game. He was wrecking that game for a long time.
All right, one guy started off a little slow in last night's game. They kind of contained him for at least a little while, Saquan Barkley, but ends up with 146 yards. By the way, he's on pace for 1,932 yards. How good is this guy?
Yeah, that's the beauty of a Saquon Barkley is you can bottle him up for 3 quarters, and it just doesn't matter. It was really cool after the game. One of my stories that I walked out of the locker room with was the offensive lineman saying just how positive he is when things aren't going well. Because for the first 3 quarters, he really hadn't done much. Yeah, he was averaging like 3.5 yards per carry. But he's the type of player where if you keep feeding him, he's going to break one. So you give credit to Kellen Moore for continuing to call those runs, knowing what kind of player he has. But you give the offensive line credit too, and Saquon, because he's telling the offensive lineman, like, hey, you keep blocking for me. We're going to get this right. I'm going to break one eventually. And then he breaks 2 in the fourth quarter. And also give some credit to Kenny Gainwell, who doesn't get a lot of shine, who's clearly the backup. He's had a even more minimal role this year with the addition of Saquon Barkley, but he was really the guy to get the run game going. He had those 3 carries back-to-back early in the fourth quarter, picked up 34 yards on those 3 carries, and that's really what kind of broke the game open on the run game.
We're speaking with Dave Zangaro, does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for NBC Sports Philadelphia. I have your story in front of me following up on Saquon Barkley, and you have Lane Johnson talking about it, Jordan Mailata talking about the communication, what he's seeing, and all those kind of things. And then you bring up, in the fourth quarter, 6 carries, 76 yards, 12.7 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. In my opinion, Dave, and again, I want you to always correct me if I'm wrong, this style of football seems like a style that can go on the road, seems like it can handle bad weather, seems like it can work in the postseason. And do you think these guys are starting to think that? Because we asked that also because Jalen Hurts has been making jokes with Scott Van Pelt. It's starting to feel like these guys think they're really capable of doing big things.
Yeah, they do. And I don't know if you guys saw the Nick Sirianni before the Dallas game and then after it talking about they want to do special stuff. I won't use the word he used, but They want to do special stuff. I think they're thinking like that, and they should. I mean, that's how good they are right now. And at a certain point, is the passing game going to have to improve? Absolutely. Like, I think it needs to get better. What we saw earlier in that game was not good enough. But for right now, like, you win a game like that, and you're able to dictate what you're doing offensively on the ground on your terms, it's really impressive. And, like, seeing Saquon Barkley get better as the game goes on, it's just really special. His 2 touchdown runs of 23 and 39 yards, he went over 20 miles per hour on both of those runs, according to Next Gen Stats. He has 6 runs this year of 20-plus miles per hour. That's the most in the NFL. And for him to do it in the fourth quarter is so special. He gets better as the game goes on. He somehow gets faster. He gets stronger where the defense is worn down. It's an incredible weapon to have.
All right, I guess I'm going to preface this. Does Nick Sirianni know something we don't? Obviously, he's been going for it on fourth down a lot this season, sometimes in questionable calls. And now we have our kicker, Jake Elliott, go out there, go 2 for 4, and miss an extra point. Is something going on here that we don't know about?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really tie those 2 together. I think Nick goes for it on fourth down so often because that's what he wants to be. That's the kind
I was kind of in jest with that, Dave.
Yeah, the Jake Elliott thing, it's not a good game for him, obviously. It's just the second time in his career he's missed 2 field goals in a game. I think he'll be okay. He's the best kicker in franchise history. Kind of a weird thing. He missed all 3 of his kicks wide left, so maybe there's something from a technical standpoint he needs to correct. Not great. And with a kicker, like even a kicker that's as good as Jake Elliott, you do start to like worry a little bit because it's such a finicky position. And it's kind of like you're worried about like him getting the yips a little bit. But I have faith that he'll turn around. It wasn't a great special teams game. The offense and defense pulled through, but you had that the missed field goals from Jake Elliott. Then you had the bad punt by Braden Mann. For the most part, special teams have been pretty good this year, but they have to clean that up.
You know, Dave, let me ask you this last thing to wrap up. You've been around this team. You were around for a Super Bowl winner. You were around for a team that got to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl's in New Orleans. What percentage chance, because I know you can't guarantee, what percentage chance do you think that you're going back to New Orleans this season to cover an Eagles? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? 10%? Do you have a percentage of it? Because we know there's a chance. What kind of chance are you giving them?
Man, you're trying to give me a number here.
A range. You give me a range. You give me a range.
Range. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say probably under 50% because you have a team ahead of them in the Lions that's right now in the driver's seat for that 1 seed, and that's so important. And you have the field. So, but I think like 30% is, and that's a really good percentage for right now with so much time to go and so many good games ahead on their schedule. I'll put it to you this way. I was starting to plan a trip early in the year for February, and that is completely on hold right now because this team, there's something about it, and there's something about the vibes of this team. And I know that it's easy to say that when they're on a win streak like this. Of course they're going to be happy. Of course they're going to be getting along, and things are going to be going the right way. But even when they were winning games last year, the vibe was off with that football team, and I think everyone felt it. And this year, it feels right. It feels like it's supposed to feel that the team is rolling. And I know that's something that Nick Sirianni cares about. He always talks about it. You know, the best teams are the ones that are most connected. This team has that feel to it right now, and there's a long way to go in this season, but that's why I appreciate his message to the team last week about doing special stuff, because this team definitely has that possibility.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate all the information as usual that everybody should read. What Eagles offensive line loves so much about Saquon Barkley. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right, that was Dave Zangaro on the Comcast Business Hotline.